Hey guys, and welcome to this particular video in the algebra series, this one on linear inequalities. So we have been dealing with straight up equations for the time being, and this time we're actually going to move on a little bit to inequations. So equations are things where that equals sign means that one side is equivalent to the other. In an inequality or an inequation, we're saying that's not the case. That it may be equal or equivalent, but generally speaking, it'll be either less than or equal or greater than. So we're going to be working with that a little bit today and in this video. We've got a few things to talk about and then we'll do some examples. You can see in the notes there, we have our symbols. Alright, these are the four main symbols that we're going to be using with inequalities, or the four symbols we'll use. We've got our less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. And these are the things that we're going to be using. Now, underneath here, on a number line, so what we do is we tend to represent these on a number line. They can be represented on a number plane, but we tend to represent them on the number line. So what we do is if it's just less than or greater than, alright, so if it's just less than or greater than, just less than or greater than, alright, we use an open circle. Alright, we use an open circle because the end point is not included. Okay. If it is a closed circle, the endpoint is included. Alright, so if we've got the equal to part as well, oops. Okay, so for these, less than or greater than, open circle, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, closed circle. Now, there is a couple of other little bits and pieces to do with representing our inequalities on a number line, but we'll get into those into the examples. Now, in terms of solving an inequality, so it's an equation where the two sides are not necessarily equivalent. There are a couple of little rules. So most of them are exactly the same. Whatever you do to one side, you must do to the other. There is a couple of notable exceptions. So the first exception is we reverse the sign. All right, so we'll reverse the inequality sign if we multiply or divide by a negative number. The other way we do is if we are changing sides. So we're moving one thing from one side to the other. All right, so if we're reversing the inequality sides, we're switching the sides. So if we have, let's see, So we have minus 5 is less than or equal to, less than minus 3, but we change it to say 3, or we change around, so we want the number greater to be first, so we'd be going like that. So we switch those around, we switch the sign. Okay, so they're the main things to remember. Now let's get into some examples and we'll see how some of these little bits and pieces work. Alright, so here's our first one. It's an inequality. You can see there, I'll make it a little bit bigger. We can see here we have an open circle. Alright, so it's just going to be either less than or greater than. Now we have an arrow moving up the number line. Whoops. So the arrow is moving up the line, so it's going to be a greater than, because the number we want, or the value we want, is greater than the number we've circled. So for this one, we're going to have x, because we have our little x here, x is greater than, now it's an open circle, so it's not or equal to 2. So x is greater than 2. So this is how this is working. Whichever way that arrow is pointing, it's going to tell you whether it's greater than or equal to. Now the other way that we can graph these, when we see this in this example, is like this. So we'll have a range at this time. This one's a range, because we're saying that the value that we want is between two values, so it's a range. Okay, so what we're looking at here, we have two circles now, one open, one closed. So we're going to have one of each sign in there. We're still going to use x. X is now in the middle, okay, because we're between two values. So x is in the middle. The open circle is at the top, so that's where the 0 is going to be. And because that's at the top, that means that everything on the left of it is less than. So we're going to use the less than sign. Now because this is the open circle, it is just less than. The minus 3, on the other hand, right down the bottom, is actually going to be, now I need to give myself a little bit more room. All right, that minus 3 is a closed circle, so this one is now less than or equal to. Less than or equal to. All right, so that's how we read off our number line. Now let's have a look at a couple of other different types of examples. This time we're going to solve some inequalities. All right, so just like we would solve an equation, we're going to solve these inequalities. So first things first, I'm going to look at our first example, and I'm going to go through those motions. All right, so I'm going to take 4 from both sides. And then I'm going to divide by 3. Gives me x is greater than 3. So now I draw this up on a number line. If you've got your ruler handy, use your ruler. So just a quick little number line. All right. I'm going to put x on the end. It doesn't matter which end, really. X usually just goes to the right. And I need x is greater than 3, so I definitely need a 3 on there. And then a couple of numbers above 3, so let's go 4 and 5. Let's go one below. And now it's just a greater than, so it's not a or equal to, it's just greater than. So we're going to use the open circle. And then the arrow is going to go above 3. And that's how that's done. Okay, so in our next one, we're going to do exactly the same process. We're going to solve like we're solving an equation. All right, so I'm going to take 4. All right, so here, that's where I am at the moment. Now I need to multiply by -3. So that negative sign here is for both, but if we multiply by -3, we'll just get a positive x. And what that does is that's going to switch our sign around. So we're multiplying now by a negative number. We're going to switch our sign around. So we're now going to have that. Now, 2 times -3 is just -6. Okay. So now we draw this one up on a number line. Same concept, just drawing your line. Arrows either end, put in the x. And this time we want to have at least a -6 in there, so I'm going to pop in a -6. And I'm going to pop it down the bottom end because we are looking for something that is greater than -6. And I'm going to sit just like that. So this time though, it is a greater than or equal to. So this time it's a closed circle. And then we put the arrow going in the direction that we need it to go in. And that's what that one looks like. The last one has a few extra steps in it because it's a slightly bigger inequality. So let's get cracking on our last one here. So same process as before. Let's solve like it is a regular equation. Okay, what I'm going to do first, because I like to play with positive numbers for the most part, I'm actually going to start by subtracting 3x. And then I'm going to add 4. And you can see that I'm just going through the exact same process as before. Using my opposite operations. And this is where we do that switcheroo. So from before, when we were talking about changing those signs, if I want to have x on the left, which is a fairly straightforward convention in mathematics, I just change the sign around. So instead of 2 being greater than x, I've got x is less than 2. So now we draw that number line up. Same process to draw your number line as every other time. Now, we need to definitely have a 2, but this time it is a less than, so I'm going to pop the 2 up the top end. And then populate my number line. It is a less than, not a less than or equal to, so this time it is an open circle. So open circle, and then my arrow going down this time because it's a less than. So that is how linear inequalities work. We will work with them again at some point. But for now, Good luck with your questions. See you in the next video.